Hi Carl, Vance here. Just in my testing I've come up with a slight flaw that I'm hoping should be simple to fix. One of my concerns was the water that would be poured down in here would run across the axle and inside the hole where the wire comes through, and then run down here, down into the where the motor's at, and eventually damage the motor, even if it has a chance to weep out. The benefit of the previous weep hole was water would come in through where the propeller is at, and that is below the motor, so it would come in and still leak out and never touch the motor. But any water that enters the system up here will eventually, let's see if I get it focused here, there we go. Any water that enters up here, my concern is, would run down and eventually make its way down to the motor and damage it. And if I put a caulking in here to seal it in any way, then that water would get in here and fill this up, and that would throw off the weight balance. So just all kinds of issues, and I kind of came up with the idea of how to fix it, and it's so simple we should probably address it now. And what it is, it's simply putting in a little interior channel here that will, the edge of which will extend just farther than the end of the axle on each side, so that any water that comes in and runs down here or runs down the bottom of the axle will drip off into this and out a little weep hole that we put on each side and then out. So water can't run down in here. It still gives plenty of room for the wire to run in and through the hole and out, and yet it prevents water from ever building up in here and ever making it down. So if we were looking at your drawing here, or your picture, it would be right here. You would have just a plastic just like this is the height of that plastic. You'd have a channel that would run right there and connect to there, and the same thing on this side up, and then you'd put the weep hole right at the, if these pieces of plastic or this edge ran across even with each other, the weep hole would be right where my pencil point is on each side. So basically, if you were looking at it from a view like this inside of the wishbone, you'd have this little weep hole there. And the other beauty of doing it this way is that it won't affect the injection molding, because the weep hole is split in two, and so there won't be any issue with injection molding that kind of an idea. So hopefully this can be a simple addition to this design, where you put a channel that goes past the end of the axle. It's critical that it's further in than the end of the axle, because that's where the water will run off. Now, when I tested models of this, the first models I tested, no water came down here. I poured buckets over it and it was fine. But the second model, water came in as I would have expected. So I think it has to do with how smooth and perfect a fit it is at the time. Sometimes it might be smooth enough to prevent water, but those are usually too tight. They don't move properly. So if we loosen these up to make them pivot properly, then we also allow water to enter. And I think this solution will prevent that water from being able to run down. So just a piece of an internal wall, essentially, that runs down and across and down and up. Then a slot right from this edge down, opening just a hair, maybe a millimeter in each direction on this piece and on this piece. So it'd be on both of these pieces inside, so that when they're put together they meet just like this piece does. Hopefully this is a quick and straightforward, and that makes sense, and let me know if that's doable. Thanks a lot.